Hi, everybody. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Celia. We got a good crew on today. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, our screen. Give me just 2 seconds. We'll get it rocking. You guys all see that? Yes? Somebody say yes. Somebody nod and smile. Okay. We got the thumbs up from Tommy Choi. Okay, cool. All right, you guys, here's the deal. So Kevin and I are checking in from Charleston, South Carolina, actually, where we are on our annual business planning retreat for 2021. So that's why we're in the same room. We don't typically live in the same room, but we do for a week. And so guys, our mission today is to make sure that this is super interactive and that we have a lot of discussion. So we are going to share a bunch of stuff, but really the value here is going to come from you guys all participating in the discussion. So can we all agree that this is interactive? All right, first things first. If you're not talking, will you mute yourselves? Yeah? All right, cool. All right, here we go. Let's jump right into it. So I'm Emily Phair. I am one of the co-founders of the Phair-Hinton Real Estate Group. As Charlie mentioned, we started in Chicago. We've now moved into Milwaukee. And we started the Phair-Hinton Real Estate Group about 4 years ago, some amount of years ago. And prior to starting that group, I met Kevin because I was a buyer's agent on a big team in Chicago, MKT Properties. That's where we met and we worked together as buyer's agents. And then we, from there, kind of spun off and decided that we wanted to, and we were capable of starting our own team. So that was a few years ago, and now here we are. So prior to working in real estate, though, I moved to Chicago right from Madison. I went to school at Madison, and I had no background in real estate, no connection to real estate. Just thought it would be something that was really cool, and I went for it. And then I started in real estate about 12 years ago, and then started Phair-Hinton about 4 years ago. So that's my quick background, and you'll learn more about our team. We are the Phair-Hinton Real Estate Group out of Chicago, Milwaukee. Kev, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in real estate going on 5 years. I was a golf pro my whole life. So I played in college and then I mainly taught at a club on the North Shore of Long Island, did that from about 22 to 37. And I was trying to get back to the Midwest, planning on staying in golf. My brother owns a few market centers in the Virginia Beach area. So I knew a little bit about KW and whatnot. And he said, hey, I think you might enjoy real estate. You might want to think about it. So I moved to Chicago thinking that I would give real estate a try, knowing I could also, circle back to golf if I needed to. But then I landed on Joe Zimmerman's team, met Emily, and things kind of took off from there. So long story short, I didn't grow up in Chicago. I've been here about, 5 years, give or take. And, a lot of what we're talking about is based off the fact that we didn't have Chicago networks.
Right.
And you can create a business pretty quickly if you do the right stuff.
Yep.
So that's kind of the theme of what we're going to chat about.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that Kevin and I bonded over so many years ago when we started, is that neither of us had these strong networks in Chicago, and we both had to be scrappy as hell and lead generate. And that's how we built our business. And when we joined MKT Properties, we were looking for that mentorship, support, the systems, the tools to learn how to do all these things so that we could find success in our business. And that's what a team gave to us. And then we learned it all and we said, okay, cool, let's go do it ourselves. And then Phair-Hinton became Phair-Hinton Chicago, Milwaukee. We have our team on the call today. So just a quick recap of who our team is. We have a total of, we're 9 people deep, the 2 of us, and then we have 2 admin and 6 other. Did I do the math right? 2 admin, 2 of us,
the right math. Yeah.
And whatever the balance is a bunch of agents. One of them being in Milwaukee, of course, Catherine Cronin, who a lot of you guys know, and the rest being in Chicago. So Jamie Stoner, Allison Knox, Ben Klein, and Mackenzie Cook, who are all on the call today, specifically because they have a lot of value to add, guys. So you can take what we say and go with it, but also our team lives and breathes lead gen every day, all day. So they're resources for you guys as well. All right. So let's go back and talk a little bit about our first day on the job. So before being in real estate, I had never met a realtor, so I was not a homeowner. I had no idea what being a realtor was and what it was all about. I simply thought it was cool. I mean, to be totally honest, my knowledge of real estate was like from HGTV, like really, which I don't think that that's an uncommon answer. I know you guys are all watching Sunset and you're like, wow, so cool. I had that same thought 12 years ago when I decided to get into the business. So I had this idea of what it was going to be like, right? I was going to be so cool. I was going to be fancy. I was going to wear stilettos. I was going to make $1 million. So many cool listings. I was going to look at amazing rooftop views all day long. And that's what I thought about real estate. And I was a little bit right, but mostly I was totally wrong. What did you think about it before you were a realtor?
Yeah, I didn't know anything. Yeah, I just kind of thought like you get your license and then I don't know, you go to work and somebody gives you leads and you
magically
you just make money. Yeah. So it sounded pretty easy.
Yeah. Can anybody else relate to that? Like this idea of what it is versus what it actually is? And if so, like shout it out. Anybody?
Definitely. I also thought it was like, oh, we like open the door and just like show it and it's like so glamorous, but there's a lot more to the job that you realize later on. But yeah, like going into it, it's exactly what you think, like on HGTV. And you come in and you're your own boss right away and you have all these, you're so flexible hours, unlimited vacation, you're making all this money. Like it seems like such a glamorous job from the outside.
I think you're also right off the bat a business owner. So the immediate thing to do is to start figuring out how to run a business. But as you'll go into, I'm sure, is very different than that.
Yeah. Well, that's totally it, right? There's this idea, this perception of what it is versus what it actually is. So you had this idea, okay, glamour, flexibility, vacation, money, yachts, all that stuff, right? Then you go in on your first day and you're like, oh my gosh, you walk in, Mandy like helps onboard you. You've got your license hung. You've got your website set up. Lindsay helps get you all organized. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be amazing, right? I've got everything I need. Let's go. You sit at your computer and then you're like, what do I do? Right? So what do you do? What did you do like on your first day? Like Mackenzie, what did you do on your first day?
I mean, honestly, once reality sits in and, I'm working with KW is so wonderful because everyone's so helpful. So you get an idea of what you're supposed to do, but it's so overwhelming. Like being able to organize your schedule and realize like what you should prioritize. It makes like, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of information. Like I didn't know what was the first step for me to do and what was the best use of my time because you're your own boss. So like you're very much managing your own schedule and it's a lot.
And you also, just to go off that, you think like, oh my God, there's so much I need to learn. I need to become like an expert in buyer consultations and like the loan process and just like all this stuff that you're like, wow, it's so overwhelming. I have so much to learn. I feel like I need to like study almost.
Yeah. That's a common mistake is that people assume they have to be an expert in everything. So we're going to talk, like Kevin and I are going to get real with you today. We're going to talk about like what not to do. We're also going to tell you guys what to do, but let's start with talking about what not to do because there are so many things that you don't need to do. So here's the deal.
We have some comments in the chat. Sarah said she didn't realize she had to get her own clients and cried her first week. So I think we can all relate to that too.
Yes, Sarah. Yes. Yeah. But here's the thing, right? On our first day on the job, we spend and first week and month, we spend a ton of time working on all kinds of things in the business. So building a website, creating Instagram posts, learning how to write contracts, coming to lead generation classes versus actually doing lead generation, right? You're working on becoming an expert at running a search in the MLS. You want to learn the market. You want to be a market expert. And the truth is, all of that is worthless if you don't have any clients. Yeah? Okay. So here's the number one thing that actually our agents, new agents that I work with that I've met, worry about when they first start in the business. They're so consumed with not knowing the neighborhood or the community, the area, the market that they work in, that they're afraid to present themselves to a client because they don't know everything about the market. So, Kev.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put you on the spot because you don't know what's coming next.
Okay.
All right. So so Kevin is a licensed realtor in Illinois, but not in Wisconsin. Okay. He's also been to Milwaukee a total of three times. One time was for a Bucks playoff game.
Yep.
The other 2 times I dragged his ass there. right? He owns a business there, but he's only been there 3 times. So do you think that you could roll up to Milwaukee tomorrow into Bayview? He doesn't know what that means. Into Bayview, show 5 houses, go back to the office, write a contract and get it sold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Do you know anything about the Milwaukee market?
No, that doesn't matter.
Okay. Can you pronounce this word?
Oh, Jesus. Connect. No chance.
But you
No.
still think, you don't know how to pronounce that word and you still think that you can roll up Milwaukee and sell a house?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
I do. Because that's not what it's about, right? And I did know that was coming and I knew I could pronounce that word even though she gave me a hint. Yeah, so
He
that
still doesn't know how to pronounce it, guys.
yeah, no idea. But that's not what it's about, right? So you know, when I was new in Chicago, right? I mean, for the Chicago people, like I would just say ridiculous things. Like people would ask things like, you know, what's the border between Lincoln Park and Lakeview? And I'd be like, it's subjective, you know, or something like that. You're like, no, it's diversity, you idiot. You know, I would say I would drive around with clients in my car and I'd have Waze on being like, you know, traffic's really bad because I want to see what's best. It's literally because I had no idea where I was going, right? So
Right.
The point that Emily's making is we spend so much time trying to be an expert, and it's natural to think about, I want to know the contract. I want to know this. I want to know that. I want to have my ducks in a row. What if I actually, and it's just, and that's natural, but you're just doing it all in the wrong order.
Right.
Right. You will be the smartest broke realtor in all of Wisconsin if you do it in that order. So what you need to do is you need to establish a way to, you want to establish yourself as an expert in different ways.
Yeah.
And it's not fake it until you make it, but like you have to be uncomfortable. And the benefit is of great offices and things like that. Get out there, get clients. And if you kind of own it and you kind of own the conversation, nobody asks you how long you've been in the business. Nobody asks you how many places have you sold, right? It just doesn't come up. And that's everybody's fear. Right. So it's really, really important to get out there and start lead generating right off the bat, because there's a big ramp up. You start lead generating today for the first time, you might not be getting paid for 4 months. And that's a pretty quick ramp up. So you can't wait to be comfortable because you're never going to be comfortable.
Never. Let's go back for 1 second. Whoops. So you guys, we showed you this list. Let's be clear. This stuff is important, right? You have to do these things. Okay. But what we're suggesting is that you guys put faith in all of the people around you and the great offices that you work in and the staff at the offices that we work in, and know that when the time comes, somebody will help you with these things. You don't need to do this in advance of finding clients and selling houses. You can do it simultaneously. You can do it later. Somebody will help you. Kevin and I will help you. Anybody on this call, I imagine, will help you learn how to write your first contract. Will help you figure out how to log into the MLS and run a search. Anybody will help you, okay? So have your faith in the people around you and spend your time working on lead gen, not a bunch of to-do items that aren't gonna make you any money. All right, moving on. Although I do love beating a dead horse, I will continue to do that. All right, guys, you have 3 jobs in real estate. Super, super simple. 3 jobs. Number 1, you connect with people. Number 2, tell them you're a realtor. Don't forget that part. It's sort of important and we forget it a lot. And number 3 is lots of other stuff that we don't care about today. All right, so we're gonna talk about connecting with people. Here's the thing, connecting with people in 2020 looks way different than it ever has before, but that doesn't mean that we get an excuse not to connect with people, okay? So this job is entirely relationship based, and we're gonna talk about the 2 types of people that you can connect with, but we've got to be connecting. And what this isn't, is it's not calling everybody you know and saying, hey, are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Swipe left. No, that is not what we're going to tell you to do today. No one wants you to do that. We're going to suggest managing your relationships and connecting with people in a more meaningful way. Okay. So I want you guys to think about your database as an 8. So think about your bank account, right? And this is a Tommy Choism, and I think he's on the call today. So Tommy did a presentation that I sat in on called, I think, No Friend Zone years ago. And this is the analogy that's been in my head for years. And it makes a lot of sense to me, and hopefully it'll resonate with you. But if you think about your people, the people that you know, as a savings account or as your bank account, you have to consistently go to your bank account, your savings account, and make deposits, right? So every time you get paid, you put a little portion in there, you get paid, you build it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one day you go to your savings account and you say, yeah, you know what? I am going to buy the fancy car. I am going to make that down payment. I am going to go on vacation, right? After your bank account is so big, you get to make a withdrawal and not before. So when you're thinking about your people and you're thinking about connecting, think about how you can add value and add value and add value, connect. And then when the time comes that you've made enough deposits into your people, you can ask for something in return and not before, right? So if you guys are adding value day after day, month after month, year after year, you get to then go to them and say, hey, I'm looking for referrals. Hey, are you interested in buying or selling? So you've got to do it in the right order, guys. We're not asking you to go and just start asking people for things now. We're telling you to go and add value and make your deposits. Okay? All right. So let's talk about people. There's two types of people. Kev.
Yep.
This is where it gets really complicated. Okay. And you guys are all going to be like, I don't understand. Maybe there's like 4 types of people. Maybe there's only 1 type of person. No, there's 2 types of people, Mets and non-Mets. So I'm going to help you guys, because it's complicated, figure out how to divide your database or your world into 2 people. So the definition of a Met, it's really complicated. Okay, so just hang in there with me. Have you met them? Yeah? If you've met them, they're a Met. Do you get it?
I think I got it. I better write that down. So
Yeah.
So you've met them.
You've met them. Okay.
All right. Let me write
Any
that.
confusion about that? That you guys, we joke about this because people are like, what about Uncle Bobby who lives in Florida? Well, have you met Uncle Bobby?
I haven't met crazy Uncle Bob, actually.
Oh, he's a non-Met.
He's a non-Met.
But if you've met him, he's a Met. Okay. And we laugh about this because it's just like, it's so funny how people start to look at their database and they start to make excuses or qualify or disqualify their entire Met database, like on an individual basis, right? So they go, well, Uncle Bobby just lost his job, so he's probably not going to buy, so I won't add him. They go, oh yeah, my best friend, she's in the service industry, and in Chicago, like, you know, restaurants aren't open now, so I'm going to take her out of the database, right? Or like, I'm only 23 years old and all my friends are just out of college, so I'm not going to put them in the database, right? We disqualify people immediately because we're looking at them on an individual basis. So we want you to literally look at your people and say, have I met them or have I not met them? And that's it. Super, super easy.
Yeah. The point here is if you start to predict where referrals are going to come from or you will be wrong every single time.
Yep.
Right. You get referrals from places that you never expect, and then you don't get referrals from places that you thought you would, right?
Yeah.
One of my best buddies in Chicago has never given me a deal ever. And my quarterly touch is every single quarter. I send him a picture of a donut and he always forgets. He's like, what's that? I'm like, 0. That's how many referrals you've ever given me.
Right.
Right. And that's my touch to him. And he laughs. And maybe one day he'll give me a referral. Emily and I, we were chatting the other day that we went on a FSBO appointment that we did not get because they ended up selling it to their neighbor. And that couple's probably given us 5 referrals. And we didn't even do business with them and we didn't even know them.
Right.
So had they not gone into the database, had we not stayed in touch, we wouldn't have got those deals.
Yeah.
So don't predict where your deals will come from because you'll be wrong. So if you've met them, they go into your Met database and you market to them as a Met and you don't have to think about anything else.
That's right. That's right.
And Emily, when I first started, you had given me a really good example of the wedding analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah. Okay. So I love also thinking about our Met database in this way. Okay. So you guys tend to, and I used to do this, is look at an individual person and, like I said, qualify them or disqualify them. But here's what I want to encourage you to do. Every single person you know knows a whole bunch of people, right? So what if you looked at each person as though they were at the banquet or the head table of a big banquet hall at their own wedding? They know, like imagine a big old banquet hall wedding in Wisconsin, like 200 people, right? Okay. So you are not necessarily trying to sell to that one person, that one friend of yours, right? You're trying to tap into that one person's wedding, right? So your goal should not be to sell to your best friend. Your goal should be to get on the dance floor of that wedding and figure out who is going to buy or sell from you of her database or of his database, right? So every person becomes a huge amount of people, right? And then if you look at, you know, we'll talk about the 33 touch in a second. If you guys are familiar with that, you know that if you systematically nurture to your database, you will convert it at a ratio of 2 to 12 or 1 to 6. And that's a really important number, because if we say we convert our database at a ratio of 1 to 6, that means that 1 out of every 6 people, 1 out of every 6 people in your database will become a buyer or seller. But that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is 2 out of 12. And the reason that's important is because we're not looking just to sell to the people in our database. We're looking to sell to either them or somebody that they know. So we're looking for referrals and we're looking for people in our database. So weddings, guys, weddings. Go to weddings, get on the dance floor. All right, there's another type of person out there. There's the non-met. So if you have not met somebody, they are a non-met. We're going to talk about how to nurture and how to build your non-met database in just a minute, but we're going to stay on METs for a second. And I mentioned the 33 touch, so let's talk about this. Okay, so you've got your MET database, and I mentioned this before, but I can't say it enough, is that we naturally as humans, what we want to do is look at our people and start to cherry pick our favorites, right? That's all we're doing. We're favoriting people. That's natural. If you guys are tempted to do that, it's fine. You're right on track. That's the natural human way, right? And so what we're going to encourage you to do from a lead generation standpoint is to take your database, look at it as a whole, and then systematically nurture it through the 33 touch. And here's what the 33 touch looks like. This is, some of you guys might call it the 36 touch, and some of you might run it a little bit differently, but at Phair-Hinton Chicago, Milwaukee, this is how we do it. We send to our entire MET database, so forget about your non-METs, your MET database, we send 24 mass emails per year, so it's about 2 a month. And specifically, one of those 2 per month is something that's action-oriented or a call to action, like, hey, do you want to know the value of your home? Hey, have you refinanced lately? Something that's action-oriented. And then the other is something that's a little bit more branded, right? So it might be our listings. It might be, hey, we've expanded to Milwaukee, something branding, volunteer events that we've done, things like that. So mass emails, guys, this is easy, right? It's easy. There's lots of ways to do this for free. So you can do it through command, of course. You can do it through, I think we do it through MailChimp. Yeah. Molly Mudd knows, I think MailChimp. But here's what you shouldn't do. Spend hours and hours and hours and hours making the perfect email. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be good. It just has to be something. It just has to be Phair-Hinton Chicago, Milwaukee hits their inbox. They think about us for 2 seconds and then they delete. Okay, that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to accomplish really much with this email. Anybody have questions? We're going to talk about the stickies and the quarterly touches, but this can be a little bit of a trick for people because they want to fall into the trap of perfection before they output. Does anybody have questions about these emails? Yes,
hey,
no?
Emily.
Yeah. Hi, Pedro.
Hey guys. So do you include social media in your 33 touch as a soft touch?
Yes and no. So so social media, we can do a whole conversation about that. But social media basically acts on our team as an additional touches. However, we're going to talk about the quarterly touches in a second, and we would potentially use social media as a part of our quarterly touch if we're doing direct contacts and direct engagement. So social media, guys, for us is just icing on the cake. We're a little bit old school, I'd say. You say we're old school?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's gravy, right? So we control the 33 touches. We used to be able to do events; those will come back. But when you do factor in social media, it is probably 50 to 60 touches over the course of the year. But we think of it as the gravy or the icing.
Yeah. And Pedro, let's go back a second to like when you, to the red book and the 33 touch has proven that your database will convert if you follow this method at a 2 to 12 or 2 to 12 ratio. So anything else is awesome, but we're talking about what to do at a basic level so that you can get your database to convert at 2 to 12. Okay, does that make sense?
Oh, it definitely does. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, stickies. Let's talk about stickies. So,
We've got a question in the chat. It says, what is your content for mass emails equating to 2 emails a month? Are some just happy generic holiday from PHG? I know you kind of touched on this, but if you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mentioned this. We do one of our emails is action oriented, and then the other is branding. So branding would be something like happy holidays. Action would be something like I mentioned, do you want to know the value of your home? What else have we done for action? This is where Molly Mudd comes into play because she, and you guys, we can also take, we're going to save time for questions at the end, but also like if you guys have very specific questions about content, we're happy to share any emails that we have. We can forward you things that we've sent over the last few months so you can get a sense of what it looks like. But again, we can't stress enough, like it's not about having the perfect message. It really doesn't matter. Just get anything out there with your name on it. Like really anything. Would you agree?
Yeah,
Hi, hi guys, it's Donna Z. How are you guys?
Hey,
Hi, Donna.
Donna.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you forever.
I am so proud of you guys.
Oh, man.
Hi.
Hi. Well, I'm down in Naples now, so anybody that needs anything down in South Florida, this is where I'm at. My family and parents are down here, so kind of like what you're doing up in Milwaukee is what I'm doing down here. So,
awesome.
FYI.
Smart lady, went somewhere warm.
Everybody, I just wanted to just introduce myself. I was actually the launch partner and team leader at Keller Williams Chicago O'Hare. And to answer some of your questions now that we're One Chicago, the great news is some of this content of what you're trying to ask in regards to the 33 and the 36 touch. In our command system, the great news is they have built in all these campaigns. So if you do tap into Joe's morning with command, like the morning cup of Joe at 8 a.m., he can help walk you through a lot of this. So there's a lot of resources, as they were saying in the beginning. Don't worry about, listen, it's messy in the beginning. We know this, but there's enough of us around to help ask these questions and everything. And I would encourage, for those of you that haven't really tapped into your command, I promise you these 33 and these 36 touches, et cetera, and the different campaigns are in there. And I would just highly encourage to jump on the morning cup of Joe with Joe Green.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, Anna. That's a really good point, you guys. This is the 33 touch is like the oldest thing in KW history, right? So there's so many resources. There's classes that are taught specifically about just this slide alone. I know Phil Byers in Chicago has taught this, both Chicago, but also in the Milwaukee markets, and goes into much more detail about how to run an effective 33 touch. And there's a ton of resources, but we just want to review like the basics, right? So we got the 24 mass emails. Then we send 5 stickies every year. And a sticky, this is, I think, a Phil Byerism, but a sticky is anything that sticks around, right? So in the case of our team, Phair-Hinton Chicago, Milwaukee, we say a sticky can be something that sticks around or is fun, funny, or engaging to our clients. So as an example, last month, or just in the last couple of weeks, actually, we sent Kevin to the bank with a duffel bag, and he walked out with 900 $1 bills. It was very confusing to the bank woman.
What do you think the teller thinks when a single guy rocks in and takes out 900 $1 bills? She doesn't think I'm the so. So, you know, they always send me on, you know, I'll take it for the team.
Yeah.
But,
we should have thought that through a little better, but regardless, Kevin was a trooper, went to the bank, got 900 $1 bills. And then we sent out $1 bills, that's it, with a little note that said something like it pays to work with our team or something fun, right? The engagement that we got from that silly, ridiculous mailer was awesome, right? And that's what we're trying to do, is just make people smile, make people laugh, keep them engaged with who we are and what we're all about. If you're not into $1 bills and going to, then one thing that you could try instead that we also do around St. Patrick's Day is we do that in the form of a lottery ticket, which is a little bit more PC, maybe. We've also done can koozies. We've done, I don't know if you guys can see this. These are, I don't know what this thing is called, but these things that hold credit cards. So there's lots of fun, engaging stickies that you can send out to your database to stay in front of them.
Yep. And we try to, and we don't, the point is not to kind of, to bust the bank on it.
Right.
We try to be out with postage, everything, no more than $2 or $2.50 a sticky. Molly could say exactly somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So we're not sending, $15 pairs of sunglasses and things like that. We might, like dollar throwaway sunglasses or things like that.
Yeah.
Because that's not the point. It sticks around a little bit longer. So you don't have to overthink this one that much either. And you don't need to spend a lot of money.
Yep.
I mean, it does cost some money as your database grows, but we get the bulk of our, where this has the greatest effect are the stickies and the quarterly touches. That is where we kind of make the most headway. We get the most engagement, and the emails are just kind of throwaways, and it just reminds them that that's what we do. So you really want to put, if you are going to put thought into it, it's the next two, it's stickies and what your touches are going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point, Kev. So what you guys, I think, are all going to be tempted to do is just hide behind your 24 mass emails. Like, okay, I sent out my 24 emails. Now I'm going to go to the bar, get drunk, and see what happens. Like, nope, that's not the right way to do it. In fact, if I was smarter when I put this presentation together, I should have flipped this, right? The most important thing here are your quarterly touches, then the stickies, then the mass emails, in that priority, in that order of priority. So let's talk about quarterly touches. How would you define a touch?
Yeah, so this is, we've stolen this as well from Phil Byers.
Yeah, he's the best.
But loosely, a quarterly touch is you've thought about someone in a thoughtful way and they are aware that you did, right? So that when you reach out to them, if that's really all it is, right? Yeah. It's a call that they you've thought about them. It's a direct text. It's a comment on Facebook with some content behind it. Mm-hmm. But that's really all it is. You've reached out in a meaningful way and they're aware that you did. And that's a touch. And rarely is it about asking for business.
It doesn't, guys, this goes back to what I said earlier. It doesn't have to be about real estate. You're not calling them to ask them for something. You're calling them to make a deposit. Yeah. We used to say quarterly calls. When I started in this business, and probably when you started, we always said quarterly call, quarterly call, quarterly call. And I think we're on the same page here that the world has evolved. Social media is a huge part of our world. The buyer pool is younger and younger. The biggest pool of first-time buyers are millennials, right? And so a call doesn't have to be a phone call. It can and it should be, and that would be awesome. But we've termed this now a quarterly touch, right? So you think about somebody in a meaningful way, you reach out, they know you thought about them, and hopefully they engage back. They don't necessarily have to engage back, but that's the goal. It's not good. You guys think about like when it's your best friend's birthday, and what is today? November 20, whatever.
18th. November
18th. Okay, so somebody on this call knows somebody whose birthday it is today. And I'll tell you what, it is not good enough to think happy birthday to that person in your head. That's thoughtful, but that's not thinking about somebody in a meaningful way, and they know you think of them. You have to call them and say happy birthday. That's the second step. We all take the first step where we think about our past clients. We think about our friends. We've identified a house that they might like. We have so many things going on in our head, but we don't take the effort to actually do the touch in a meaningful way where they know that we've been thinking of them. That's the trick. That's the whole game, guys.
Yeah, and then to expand on that, right? There are certainly times to ask for business. There's no doubt about it, right? Maybe it's once a year, maybe it's at whatever rate, but it's not every time. But the more that you can make these touches a value add, these calls or emails become way easier because you're not asking for anything. So if you call someone and say, hey, listen, the deadline to appeal your taxes are coming up. Did you appeal your taxes? That is such an easy call.
That's a deposit.
Yes, that's a deposit. Everybody takes that. Mm-hmm. Hey, I just came across this HVAC servicing coupon. It saves you $50. You want it. We're approaching the winter. That's an easy call, right? So if you are struggling with those types of things, make them value adds, and they'll be really easy to do.
That's right.
And then the reception on the other end will be great, so easy, and then they will give you business when the time's right.
Yep. All right, moving on. The fraud complex. All right, guys, this is not to be confused with the Freud complex, which is totally different, okay? This is the fraud complex. So when we think about our business, we think about two things. One, how to make money. That's the number one thing we think about. We wake up, we think, first thing, how are we gonna make money? How are we gonna make money? And that's good, but there's a second part to that. The second step is thinking, what's holding me back from making money? And we are really good about thinking about how to make money. We're really not good at thinking about what's holding us back. And I presume that the fraud complex is a huge part of what holds all of us back from making money and or just reaching our full potential in whatever it is that we're doing. So let me give you an example. Kevin and I have never in our lives taught a class on lead generation at all. This is our first time. We have no idea what we're doing. We don't even know if you guys are liking this, if you're engaged. We have no idea, right? So for the last day or two, we talked about it. We practiced it. We built this out. And the whole time there was a voice in the back of my head going, you don't know how to do this. You've never done this. What gives you the right to teach this class? Furthermore, I haven't done my lead gen today, to be honest. Have you done your lead gen?
No.
No. So it's like this fraud, like none of us are immune to this little voice in our head that likes to creep in and tell us that we're a fraud. None of us at any level. The difference between us doing this today and a lot of you guys is that we're willing to listen to the voice and stomp it out and do it anyway. We're like, we haven't done this before. We have no idea what we're doing. We opened a business in another state. We didn't know what we were doing. Like, we're willing to just say, we don't know what we're doing. We are not experts. We're really far from experts in most things, but we're going to do it anyway. Right? All right. So the other thing to think about is that there's a very low barrier to entry in the real estate business. So you can take a test, you take a class, you take a test, you get a license, you go see Mandy, you go see Lindsay, boom, you're a realtor. It's really that simple for a lot of people, right? There's not, like, if you think about a doctor or a lawyer, they take years of schooling. They pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. They are, by the time they take their final exam, they are a qualified attorney or a highly qualified physician. There is such a lead up and such a vast amount of education just to get them that piece of paper. It's not that way in real estate, right? So the first day on the job, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm responsible for this, selling this $1 million house. And I have no training, you have no training. So that's one reason the fraud complex comes into play, because you're really not an expert. So if you feel like a fraud, guys, it's because you are. You aren't an expert on day one. You're not an expert for a long, long time, in fact. The other way that I see this come into play is that your friends and your family and your friends of friends and the people that you know, they watched you go through the real estate classes and the real estate exam, and they saw you get your license, and then you told them that you started at KW. And then you go to your sister and you say, hey, I'm a real estate expert now. And your sister's like, no, you're not. You got your license yesterday. I was there the whole time. They don't think of you as a real estate expert. They think of you how they thought of you before you were a realtor, right? Your friends think of you as their friend. Your sister thinks of you as her sister. Your brother thinks of you as their brother, right? That's how they think of you. So these two things, like we don't have a ton of education and we have a past history of who we were. And all of that comes together and we are frauds when we say, hey, I'm a real estate expert. And that little voice in our head is stopping us and holding us back from going after things with confidence and going after things with like being super assertive and fearless about taking our business to the next level.
So to kind of expand on that, so a couple things, right? Like, it can take a little while with your database to convince them that you're not a frauder, and those are the things that we come up in our head, and they don't necessarily use that term, right? But with your 33 touch, for example, right, there is a lead up. So it doesn't mean the first time you get an email that you send out, you get referrals or your first touch, right? So as you are planning your business and whatnot, you have to be doing it for a consistent amount of time to be of top of mind to those people. And then also for people in your life to kind of think of you in a different way. But the other part of this, if you think about it, right? Like literally everything you do is a first, right?
Yeah.
It's the first time you've got a buyer. It's the first time you've got a seller. It's the first time you sell $1 million house. It's the first time you work with an athlete. It's the first time you sell a 2-flat. And all you do is get out of your comfort zone.
Totally.
So you have to be super comfortable with diving in, acting as if kind of thing, and then using the support around you. And if you own it, nobody tends to ask.
Correct.
But if you wait, the point of all of this, if you wait till you're an expert on the contract, if you wait until you're comfortable with this neighborhood or this price point or what, you're going to spend your whole career waiting and you're going to run out of money.
You're going to run out of money like next week
fast.
if you're just waiting.
So that's a lot of this. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. And then that's what pivots into the marketing and talking to non-Mets as an option as well.
Yeah. So Kev, good segue.
May I interrupt here? And just for everybody, what I would tell you is that you have the great news about Keller Williams and this incredible company that you joined is that our whole company is a team of agents. And that literally you have support amongst all of your whole team from beginning to end. So for those of you that are new to the business, just please use that to help reassure the other individuals, like the sister that says you just got into it, and your script back should be like, oh my gosh, no, that's what's so great about this company is I have a team of 180,000 agents globally. So no matter what or where you need it, that's the great news about Keller Williams. We all come together to help each other. So that'll help you get over that fear. And trust me, the team is around you. Sorry, guys.
Thanks, Donna. Okay, so the good news, and Donna's right, but the other good news is that there's a solution for people who are nervous about being an expert to their sphere and the people that they already know. And that's through lead gen through the second group of people that we haven't talked about yet. These are the non-Mets, right? Here's the thing. If non-Mets are obviously people you haven't met yet. And so you have an opportunity to present yourself to these new people in whatever way you want, right? You get to go to an open house, stand there, somebody walks in the door, and you get to be the best version of yourself that you can imagine because they don't know any better. So to them, you get to be an actual real estate expert, right? They don't know you as sister. They don't know that you got your license yesterday or that you've only done 20 sales in your career so far. For all they know, you are the #1 real estate agent in all of Chicago or all of Milwaukee. That's how you get to present yourself. And so if this group of people, right? So cold leads through open houses, which Kevin and I obviously support. And if you were on our call last week, you learned a lot about open house leads and how we feel super passionate about that. But online leads, farming, circle prospect, all these, right? You get an opportunity to present yourself in a way that makes you an expert or helps you feel like an expert. So the difference is that if you're going to work with Mets, great. You get to nurture your sphere in a systematic way consistently. And that's awesome. You're going to convert that at about a rate of 2 to 12, as we talked about. If you're going to work your non-Met database because you're really like your fraud complex is coming in and you're like, oh, I'd rather work with cold. That's fine. That's a strategic decision that you get to make, but you're going to work 10 times harder. You're going to work 10 times harder. These leads convert at a much lower rate. So the good news is it's an option for you. The bad news is that it takes a lot more time and a lot more money. So we're not like, I actually did build my business on non-Mets because I moved into Chicago without having a big database. And frankly, I was extremely nervous to talk to people about real estate. I still am. I still have fraud complex like every single day when it comes to real estate. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. So I like cold lead generation. I like non-Mets, but to get them and to do it well, you have to spend a lot of time and you have to spend a lot of money.
And our advice on this would be to very much get over your fraud complex if you have one and focus on your network. focus on your sphere. That
Yeah.
will always be your best rate of return on your money and your time. And on our team, it's not optional. So for our team, if you want to market and target non-Mets, that's great, but you don't have the right to do it until you've touched your network.
That's right.
Until you've ran your 33 touch, you've done your quarterly calls. If you want to do this as bonus,
Yep.
either to double your business or your network is not referring you at the pace that you want it to, that's fine, but it's not optional to just only do this. You have to touch your sphere first. As a solo agent, you could do whatever you want. That's not what I recommend. I recommend at the minimum you do both.
Yep.
But people have built their entire careers off of non-Mets, and if you so choose to do that, fine. But to Emily's point, know that it will be way, way more work, and the rate of return is not nearly as high as your network.
Yep. All right. Now we've got our Mets, we've got our non-Mets. Let's talk about what to do with them. All right. So this is a super simple sales cycle, right? It's not like genius. But basically what we're doing is just taking everybody we know, all of our Mets and all of our not Mets, and we're just throwing them into the sales pipeline, and we're nurturing them until they buy or sell, and then we're throwing them back in, right? So first we create a Met, we nurture them, we run the 33 touch.
I'm gonna put this on because Maureen wants us.
Somebody have a question? No? Okay, cool. So we nurture our Mets, we run the 33 touch, we systematically talk to them, systematically and consistently talk to them. Then we set an appointment. Great. Hey, do you want to meet for coffee and talk through the sales cycle? Hey, do you want me to come over and take a look at your property and we'll discuss listing it? Great. Okay. That's an appointment. Then we meet with them, we talk to them, we talk through all the sales cycle, we convert them to a client, they sign a listing agreement or they sign buyer agency. Cool. Then we sell them a house. Great. We close. Great. Then they move right back to the top, because guess what? Everybody who buys a house, the second they buy a house, all they are is a seller, right? Now they own the house. We've got to nurture them in our 33 touch until they sell. So it's just this cycle. It's like this never ending cycle. And this is how we nurture our database and do lead gen consistently over time so that we can always convert at that ratio of 2 to 12. This is what the sales cycle is. All right, guys, that we have a ton of time left for questions, and we can go back to any of this that speaks to you or any questions that came up, because we just threw a ton of information at you. So
We've got a bunch in the chat
We
here.
do.
I figure out the best way to do that.
So Kevin and I are not the most.
A lot of comments.
Yeah.
And like, I've been monitoring.
Feel free to ask your questions in the chat now, though, and we'll read them out.
One thing,
Yeah, we can't see the chat button
Here it is.
with the chat box. Where?
Hey,
Oh.
Emily, let me jump in here.
Hi, Charlie.
One of the words, kind of a key words that gets thrown around a lot that I don't think people totally fully understand is the concept of circle prospecting. The rest of your non-Mets makes total sense, right? FSBOs, expireds, door knocking, open houses. Just what does circle prospecting mean to you guys, and kind of debunk the theory around that word?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have Emily do her circle prospecting strip. Because
Okay, Charlie, I'll do it on you.
It's super complicated.
Okay, it's really, here's the deal. First of all, just to answer your question really quickly, Charlie, the circle prospecting would be something like having a listing and then pulling a half-mile radius around a listing and getting the phone numbers and calling those people. So it's super cold. These are super cold leads. All right, Charlie, you ready?
Yeah.
Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hey, is this Charlie?
It is.
Hey, Charlie, Emily Phair with Keller Williams. How are you?
Hi, Emily. Good. How can I help you?
Good. Hey, listen, have you ever thought about selling your property?
Everything has a price.
Boom, done. Open, we go from there. That's what every single person says, every single person. So guys, so Charlie just gave me an opening to then say, cool, well, what do you think your home is worth? Cool, well, okay, sounds like maybe you'd consider it. Tell me a little bit about your house, right? So it's a super, super cold lead, but it can turn warm, and then the thing about circle prospecting is that it's all in the follow-up. And that's a whole other conversation, right? There's lead generation and lead follow-up. So Charlie would go from a non-Met, we'd try to nurture him until he becomes a Met.
Perfect.
Yeah. What else?
And the goal of that is to just get a piece of Charlie's contact information.
Yep.
That just, that's all you're trying to do. You make the call, you ask the question, Charlie has no interest, but you're like, well, can I get your email? I'll shoot you some stats, look it over. And now you effectively have created a Met, and then it'll go at the course. So if you, of the course of, time that it should. So if you make 500 of those phone calls, you will get 10 to 15 to 20 people that will absolutely give you their contact information, and then it'll go from there.
Another common question in real estate is how's the market? Right?
Yeah.
How many times do everybody always get asked, how is the market? The next response is, why do you ask?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And really what I'm trying to do
Because now
is,
you're going to peel the onion on it, not saying, oh, the market's great, it's running crazy, oh, it's slow, it's bad. The question for the individual, there obviously something sparked in their head with real estate. So it's our job to help unpeel that. Why do you ask? Oh, you know what? I was actually kind of thinking of doing this in the spring. Boom. Now you can put them into your pipeline or whatever those next questions are. Or they go into the story, or my mom just passed and I got to go do this. It opens up those conversations and building that rapport.
yeah, and I talked a little bit about this in the open house class, is when you make these calls, any of the cold leads, right? You're trying to either create a second face-to-face or a face-to-face. That is a huge win. That's basically an appointment. Or you're getting them to raise their hand for one of your resources, right? And as soon as they raise their hand for one of the resources, hey, have you thought about refining? Would you like to know the market stats? And you pretty much have them as a client as soon as they do one of those two things. Because if you can create a face-to-face, or they're willing to talk to your lender, whatever it is, you're going to get them. So that's really the goal of any cold lead. Create a face-to-face or get them to take you up on one of your resources.
Yeah.
Tommy,
Tommy,
we have. Oh yeah, go for it.
Hang on, Jim, 1 second. Tommy, I see your question about changing our lead gen to comply with sort of what's going on with COVID. But before I answer that question, Charlie, you wanted to say something.
No, that was the $1 million question I've gotten 100 times in the last week alone.
Okay. All right, cool. So Tommy Choi asked this: how have you all adjusted during shelter in place with your lead gen that involved more face-to-face, i.e. events, coffee meetings, lunches, cocktails, etc.? So guys, that's the whole thing, right? That we were talking about earlier, is like 2020 has been extremely different from any other year in terms of how we interact with our people, how we connect with our people. And there's lots of things obviously that we've done differently. Our team used to be very, very event-based. We did major events every year, like an Alzheimer's walk. We did happy hours. We did cooking classes, all kinds of things to connect with our people. And we just simply weren't able to do that this year. So we did have to take a step back from all of that and decide how the heck are we going to connect with our people in a meaningful way and let them know that we thought of them in a meaningful way. One of the big things that we've done, and we touched on it briefly, is social media. And let's talk about social media for a second, because again, this can be a whole class. We're actually taking a class later today on social media, because this is where we can connect and where we need to learn to get better, because we just hadn't had to focus on it until now. But when you think about social media, and if that's an outlet for you guys, you want to think about engaging with people, not putting out content. Okay, so it's not good enough to post and post and post and like people and post and like people. No, that's not good enough, right? You have to actually engage with people. So let's do a couple examples of what engagement in social media looks like. You might see a friend who got a new dog, right? That we see, there's so many dog pictures, oh my God, which I love actually. More dogs, less humans. That's what I think. But when you see somebody's new dog, right? They post it all over the place. Instead of just saying cute dog, right? You might say, what kind of dog is that? Or where did you get your dog? How old? Have you taken your dog to training? Like, ask questions about the dog. Get in a conversation with them about their dog. What we used to be able to do and get away with is just posting and or liking and or making comments. But you have to make a comment that gets them to engage back. And then all of a sudden you have a back and forth, an authentic back and forth, and now you're connected, right? That's the difference between a comment in 2020 versus a comment in 2019. Does that make sense? Do you have any other examples of how to engage?
Yeah, well, related but unrelated to Tommy's question, the two new things that we did as our buyers team, now we're doing all of our monthly, we call it cocktails and condos in Chicago, and we call it hops and homes in Wisconsin. And it's basically, it's a Zoom buyer seminar. So that's something new that we did this year to kind of connect with people. And that's been quite good, I would say. But for the most part, almost all these things except big gatherings can be replaced with Zoom, right?
Yep.
So it's just not that different, really.
Well, what's different, I'll tell you what's different, guys. What's different is now we have an excuse to not do our lead gen. That's the difference, right? We get to say, ooh, COVID, so I'm not going to meet for coffee. Ooh, and then therefore you're not going to do anything at all, right? Or, ooh, COVID, we can't do events. So we'll just, go back to Netflix, right? COVID is such an opportunity for excuse and lead generation. But you can still do your touches, right? Because you can use social media as we were talking about.
We have another question here. She says, it's her second week as an agent. I have just told all my friends and family I'm a realtor. How do I ask for business without asking for business? And Kevin, I think your couch analogy is really good.
Okay, yeah. So it kind of circles back to what Emily had said, is like you make deposits, right?
Yep.
I don't think you're not asking, you can, but it's not necessarily the best way to ask for referrals right away, right? You want to fill the ATM, right? And the analogy we were talking about yesterday, it's like when you got a buddy that you haven't talked to for 4 months, and he calls you, you're like, hey dude, can you help me move my couch 8 a.m. on Saturday morning? You're like, no, I don't want to help you move your couch. You're like, no. But if that's the same type of person that he's been engaged in your life, he's done things for you, he always shows up, he comes to your events, he supports you, the answer is always yes. Cool, I'll be there. Yep, right. I'll come, right? So don't be the person that asks you to move their couch when you haven't talked to him in 6 months, right? So that's where Jamie was going. That's so right. I think to answer the question,
if you had gone to dinner with him the week prior, then you'd be way more willing, to move his couch. So it's not necessarily always about like talking about real estate. It's like just building genuine connections with people.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So to answer the question, you just need to put it out there to your world that you are a realtor, but add value every way that you can. And then they will either give you business, or when you do ask for business, it will be a way easier conversation.
Yeah. What else you guys have? We've got a few more minutes. We've got time for questions. What do you got?
I think it would be really helpful for you guys to touch on how you've systematized your 4 quarterly touches with our data.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine.
Overwhelming.
Yep. Okay. So we made a super simple system for this. So basically we have our database and we put it in alphabetical order. And then we split the alphabet into 3. I don't know what the letters are, but split it into thirds, right? The beginning, the middle, and the end. And then we pull our full database. And let's say starting in January, we call everybody that's in the beginning of the alphabet based on their last name. In February, we call the middle. In March, we call the end. In April, we call the beginning. In May, we call the middle. In June, we call the end, right? So if you split your database into thirds, into alphabetical thirds, it's a super easy way to figure out. And we literally print a list. The list has everybody in the beginning of the alphabet for January that I need to call. And my job is just to cross that list off. Catherine, Jamie, you guys are so good. These are our agents. They're amazing. They actually have their list in front of them. We love you guys.
And then to make it less overwhelming, if there's 20 work days in a month, then Molly and or Kim will take that. They'll take the number of people in your database. If there's, 100 people in that quarter, right? Divide it by 20. And then all you have to do is on day 1, it's 5 people a day, right? And it's broken by day 1, day 2, day 3. Because what happens is if you don't do anything, for the first 15 days and now you've got 100 people to call over the course of the next 5 days, that's overwhelming. So when you break it down into days, it's a way more manageable task. So that's how we do it.
Yep. Make it simple. What else?
We have another question. If one quarterly touch is a birthday call, how does that work with the system?
I do not recommend birthday calls. I mean, call somebody on their birthday, but not as a systematic touch, right? Because then it doesn't align with your system. It's simple as that, right?
And it's not genuine, because if you've been in contact with them through your quarterly touches, you are building your relationship with them, and you should automatically just want to wish them a happy birthday because you're friendly with them.
Correct. That's right, Catherine. A birthday call is not a systematic quarterly touch. It's just gravy.
If it's something that you like to do, I have heard, I forget, might've been a lender in Chicago, strategically calls people the day before the birthday. So if that's something you like to, everybody gets called on their birthday, text on their birthday. You call them the day before. Hey man, I saw it's your birthday tomorrow. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good touch. You're like, not only did I know it's your birthday, anybody can see it on Facebook, but if I know it's the day before and I call the day before, that's pretty good.
What I do for all my birthday people is I write them handwritten note cards and I mail it to them. And I say, happy birthday month. That way I'm not worrying about them getting it on the exact day that their birthday is. Who gets handwritten birthday cards, who gets anything in the mail from anyone anymore. So that's a really great touch for birthdays that you could do.
Tommy Choi with a super good question for Jamie. Who do you like more, Kevin or Emily? Obviously it's Emily. She's the smart one. I'm just
I'll
here.
take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the beauty and the brains, and you guys can decide which is which. It's up to you. All right, other questions?
I would just make one other comment on this. The big misconception around lead generation is simply lead generation is forced human interaction. That's all it is. And so if you think about your day, how are you interacting, or how are you being intentional and purposeful around interacting with others that puts you in a position to have future success, right? And if you're not forcing human interaction, then what is your lead generation strategy in order for you to connect with people, right? And one other thing I would say as it relates to lead generation, guys, is, we talked in the very beginning of this, Emily and Kevin talked about database, right? What's the easiest way to lead generate? Hey, Emily, it's Charlie with Keller Williams. Hey, I'm updating my database because I'm about to send out my holiday cards and I want to make sure that I have the right email address, the right phone number, the right physical address. Can you just confirm, do you still live at 123 Main Street? Because I want to make sure you get my Christmas card. Boom, done. Next. Like, don't overthink it, guys.
Yeah, and Charlie, I want to add to that because this is perfect segue, and I know we got to wrap up, but Charlie started by talking about forced human interaction and then ended by giving a perfect example of that. And one thing that we've done on our team, we've implemented, not consistently, but in times of like a rut or just we're hitting a brick wall, we force our team to have that interaction through daily or weekly lead gen challenges. So if you guys are like, gosh, my Fearless is driving me nuts, or I'm just not in the mood or whatever, you can create all kinds of fun challenges to force that human interaction. And yesterday, our forced human interaction, Charlie, was for our team to go through, call our database, get addresses for future holiday cards. It was super easy, right? But we get stuck. We overthink it. We get nervous. We get stuck. We get bored of the same thing over and over and over. So create yourself some challenges, like help each other. If you have a lead gen challenge that you're doing on your team, share it with people so that they can take on the challenge. Share it with us. We always need new ideas to help force that interaction, because it is hard, guys. We're not saying like, oh yeah, it's so easy for us. We always call everybody in our Fearless like every day. We're saying, no, it's simple, but it's really, really hard to do. And we could all use a little bit of help with the force. What else, guys? Anything?
Other things that I've done is, like, if I know where my client lives, I'll just be like, hey, drove past, I was in your neighborhood today and I thought of you. Like, hope you're doing well. Like, that's a touch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So many ideas out there.
It's easy because it doesn't have to be true.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't in their neighborhood, but they don't know that.
You were in Charleston.
Yeah, you're in South Carolina. So maybe don't use that one today, Jim.
Yeah.
But the point of this is it's simple. Like, you do not need to overthink this, right? It does. Your emails don't need to be amazing. Your touches don't need to be amazing. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. And then you perfect it over time. Like, ours has gotten better. We have added more value or more content, or, but you just have to start, because the longer you go without starting, the longer you go without getting paid, and then you can perfect it along the way.
Exactly. All right, guys. I think that's it for now. We will certainly be happy to answer any questions you guys have offline. Jamie, can you post our contact information in the chat box in case anybody wants to check in with us directly? That would be awesome.
Yep,
Thank
absolutely.
you. I don't know how to do anything. Okay, we are Emily Phair and Kevin Hinton of Phair-Hinton Chicago, Milwaukee. Thank you guys so much. Charlie, any last words?
No, you guys are great. It's guys, you don't overthink lead generation. They just simplified it for you. The only thing that separates or differentiates them from anybody else is the fact that they just execute. That's it. We'll make sure also this was recorded. We'll throw it on the YouTube channel. And then Emily, just send me the deck and I'll make sure that the group gets it in case people have follow-up questions.
You got it. All right, team, go out
Perfect.
there, do some lead generation, get those.
Awesome.
See you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Still on.